The Valk 4 is a new, highly anticipated 4x4. The cube measures 60mm across. Inner layers are 14.5, outer layers are 15.5. This makes the cube similar in size and proportion to the mini Wuque and the Yixing Blue. Out of the box, I'm not impressed by this cube at all. The cube felt extremely loose, yet the corner cutting was quite limited and the cube was quite slow. So what I did was, I looped the cube with a high viscosity loop, and I looped along the lines of the mechanism as well as all the rings of the XB alignment mechanism, and I also tightened the cube to be sufficiently tighter than the stop tension. The cube became much softer and silkier, and the performance did improve quite a lot. I would describe the feel as being mostly similar to the mini Wuque, but there are some aspects that are more similar to the new batch mini Aosu as opposed to the mini Wuque. One of these includes the fact that the new batch mini Aosu is a lot faster than the mini Wuque, and the same can be said about the Valk 4. The new batch mini also has a little bit more flex and doesn't feel as stiff as the mini Wuque, and once again the Valk 4 is also a little bit more flexible in that sense, and it doesn't really feel that restrictive, but at the same time it also derives its stability not from an external squaring off of the pieces, but an internal elastic force, which is something that I can also say about this cube. But the Valk 4 seems to have a little bit more of it, and I can actually turn this cube a little bit faster. This cube stands up better against competition nerves than either of the other mini 4x4s, be it the Aosu or Wuque. Corner cutting on the Valk 4 is definitely not the best out there. I actually cannot cut line to line, but slightly less than line to line, the cube will go very effortlessly. For reverse, I can do mostly about half a piece, if not just slightly more. In comparison, the Aosu GTS2 can also reverse corner cut about the same amounts, if not just slightly more, but the forward corner cutting is quite a lot better than the Valk 4. It's almost 45. The Valk 4 can also be corner twisted, but I've yet to encounter a corner twist in a real soft, and I don't see this as an issue. For the magnets, I originally wanted to borrow a standard and a strong magnet Valk 4 to compare them, but I was told that in the first batch of Valk 4s ordered from CubeWorks, there were only strong magnetic versions, and I would say that the outer layers are actually not that strong. They are quite close to what I would normally use if I were to set up and magnetize my own 4x4, but the inner layers, however, they seem to snap a little bit stronger. And actually one thing I noticed is if you turn the cube along this area here, the outer layers are actually slightly slower than the inners, and the strong magnets of the inners help to outbalance that, such that the inners overall still need more force to turn than the outers, which that is how it should be. So even though I find that this click is a little bit more invasive, I don't mind having it around because it does help to keep the two inner layers together during edges and 3x3. The Valk 4 in general follows the mechanism of a mini Wuque, but there are a few differences. Firstly, between the first and the second layer, the U mechanism is converted into an Ao mechanism. So in the U mechanism, the second layer actually has an extra spike that comes out. In the outer layer here, this part is hollow so that the spike can fit underneath. But in the Valk 4, the spike from the U mechanism is completely removed from the second layer, and on the outer layer, you can tell the side is completely flat. Between the second and third layer, you can actually see a unique feature that only the Wuque has, but now the Valk 4 also has. And that is, if you look at the middle layer, it's actually slightly fatter on the bottom. So it actually hooks underneath. It actually provides this small bump here actually provides an extra hook underneath the second layer in addition to the wing. And then at the back, which is not present in the original Wuque, the Valk 4 also has an additional torpedo, which will fit underneath the outer layer like that, and it provides a little bit more interlocking strength. You can see a picture of the Valk 4 here compared with the Aosu, and here is a picture of the Valk 4 compared with an Wuque. Another thing about the Valk 4 is that the cube is completely primary with coloured caps on the outside, and I honestly wish I could have a Moe cube that also looks like that. Next, I'm going to compare how the Valk 4 performs against the Aosu GTS1 and 2. The Aosu GTS1 is my current main cube, and I would say that it is actually slightly lighter than the Valk 4, although the difference is hardly noticeable unless I pick up the two cubes and really try to feel for the difference. The magnetic strength on the GTS1 is slightly stronger than on the Valk 4, although it has to be noted that I magnet stacked the outer layer while keeping the inner layer the same, such that both magnets feel like the inner layer. And I find that this cube is actually slightly more reliable than the Valk 4, and it's also a little bit faster. So I do enjoy this cube a bit more for the most part, but I would say I prefer the 60mm size. I don't really mind 61. You can get used to either size, and 60 just feels slightly nicer to me. Against the Aosu GTS2, I actually don't own a GTS2, but CubeWorks owner David has graciously lent his personal main to me, and I must say that this cube is just absolutely amazing. Again, just corner cut way above any other 4x4 that I know. And the turning speed, the feel, and the stability of this cube is actually more like a 3x3 than a 4x4. Like, it's quite, I would say it's comparable to maybe the GTS2 3 or WR or Gun X in that aspect, with the only difference being this is 61mm with like 1/4 size layers instead of being 56mm with 1/3 size layers. But other than that, it's more or less a 3x3. In comparison, all the other 4x4s just feel a bit slower and heavier than the Aosu GTS2, and it feels like the GTS2 is on a whole new level in terms of how fast the thing can turn and how light it feels. My general takeaway from the Valk 4 is it's definitely a good cube and another alternative choice. My general opinion of the 4x4 market is that the market branches into two lines. The first line is the slow, crunchy, soft plastic line, where I'm referring to a tighter and more controllable feel. I'm not referring to cubes that require excessive force to turn, and in this line you have the original non-GTS Aosu series, as well as the Wuque and the Valk 4. The second line is the fast and smooth hard plastic line, which began with the Guansu if I'm not wrong, and other cubes included in this line will be the Aosu P2M and also the Aosu GTS1 and 2. And while I followed and mained cubes from both lines in the past, I do prefer the fast and smooth line a bit better, and I generally use an Aosu GTS1. But if you have watched my main speed cube video, the new batch mini Aosu has been hanging around in all those videos for a while because it just offers something that I can't get from the fast and smooth line, and I actually do appreciate the soft and crunchy line quite a bit. And the Valk 4 is the viable sequel in the soft and crunchy line that, if I had to buy this cube, it would definitely replace the new batch mini Aosu. Even though, okay, for now I'm just borrowing it for a review, but as a recommendation, if you are a follower of that soft and crunchy line of cubes, I would strongly recommend the Valk 4.